What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Coming to us live from the clouds, we've got Eric Sheet in the middle of a massive storm on the East Coast somehow. And this is not a setting. I know everybody's gone crazy with the settings over the period of time, but
No,
this is just the way that it is natural, I
it's
guess.
real.
What's going on over there?
Well, I mean, again, my office building still has no power. My house has no power, but I have a generator. But the generator is it's still not enough to make up for the internet. So there's no internet in my house. So fortunately, again, my office has satellite offices that I can go to. So here the problem with the video is not the power. The problem with the video is that I brought the laptop that had this piece of tape over the webcam because my wife is very suspicious about computers.
Yeah.
But I figured I would just do it anyway, and that beats the San Francisco backdrop, I guess. But so talk about your a little bit of success that you had.
I didn't really win much, but I had a real run in the big one. I played one big baseball lineup. I had Toro and I had Matt Olson. I had a Houston stack with Toro, a 4-man stack. Which, by the way, I just want to reiterate this. If I didn't make it a 4-man stack, I would have had no sweat at all because I originally was going to have my first baseman as Gurriel, who actually did hit a home run also, by the way. But I decided to use Matt Olson, who had two of them, also walked and scored another couple runs. So obviously had the big night. But again, it goes back to what I was saying about stacking 4. Anyway, we'll get into basketball, but I just thought that was an interesting sort of. It felt good about it last night.
Who's your highest stone golfer?
My highest owned golfer is Tommy Fleetwood.
Okay.
What's he doing?
No, nothing. I'm just asking because we didn't really go over the last.
I know. I totally forgot between all the other sports. But anyway, we'll cover it in general. But I'll let you know if anything exciting happens golf-wise. I didn't play much.
You know what I have, by the way? I played 20 lineups. I have 2, which is 2 more than I've ever had Tiger Woods lineups.
Oh, interesting. I actually went a little bit higher on Tiger this week too. I actually like him. Anyway, we'll get into basketball, but
well, I want to tell you one other thing. As long as I just want to deviate for just a second, I want to tell you something else that's tilting a little bit. I'm gonna hold on. I want to share. Oh my God! I want to share my screen, and
I can't believe you could even do that from where your location is right now.
Oh yeah, no, not this. Hold on, I want to show you. Hold on a minute. Look at this. What is this? Like, I go on to State Kings to freaking buy something, and it's like sold out at freaking 11 a.m.
Oh, I know. I only played 2 things today because I'm going to Santa Barbara to pick up my daughter this afternoon. So I'm just going to keep it as a 1 lineup Bobby for the early morning. So sold out pretty quick.
Oh, oh my God. The one lineup Bobby is like a lock, but only when. Usually the 1 lineup Bobbies are good when they're like a 13-game slate.
But 94 games, that's the best.
Yeah. You know
exactly. What's crazy is today is the most complicated small slate of all time. So we'll get into it because I think we really have to start looking at the minutes as a major concern now for basketball. You get a little glimpse of Sheets' golf lineups, but yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit nervous about everybody. And I also feel like somebody could break me because of this. I'm the least nervous of if they play the Houston guys. I just want to talk about the overall slate perspective. If they play whichever Houston guy plays, or both, then obviously they're all in play. I think you have to build your lineups with the thought in mind that there's a chance that one Houston player may sit and it might be Westbrook. I don't see that happening. It doesn't feel like him, but I think that's what you should do anyway. And then again, I think they're the 2 more interesting spend-ups on the slate, when you could throw in a nod to Giannis. I'm sorry, a nod to Luka. Anyway, so I think that is important, but the later you go, because we're going to hear about guys getting out, the more you can put your salary on the back burner as much as possible. But having said that, like, you really got to try and go out there and get the best plays. And as we all saw, the first game of the day, people were a little bit skittish on it more than they should have been, especially on the Utah side. And that's what won all the money.
Well, let's talk. Well, talk a little more about that. About why we should be so. All of a sudden, we should be concerned about the minutes. Why? Because we're heading out of regular season into the playoffs and stuff like that. Or?
So I think there's different games. So okay, the Lakers in general have done sort of what I thought, which is basically they're just limiting they're limiting the minutes, they're limiting the usage. Even they're trying to spread it around. They're trying to figure things out. They had the Davis big game against Utah because it was sort of like we need to stand up for ourselves, and they might have that kind of performance in them tonight. But in general, Giannis, we already know, is getting limited in minutes regardless. In general, like we just saw it against Brooklyn. I don't see the reason to risk him out here. We've also seen torn ACLs. Sorry, Jonathan Isaac, really sad. We don't want to see injuries right before the playoffs. So I think teams are starting to treat it. They were getting geared up, trying to treat it like a normal game because they were actually in pretty good condition. And now I think you're seeing the teams that are more settled, basically just sort of finding little things, trying to put pieces together, get lineups to work and stuff like that, but not so focused on not necessarily winning the game, but just it's not the same priority.
That's true.
So
we'll go through it as we get to the games. There was some overall things I wanted to mention about a couple of standout players. But I guess we could do that when we get to the games, I guess.
The more I went through it afterwards yesterday, Sheets, I was actually really surprised the Lakers didn't rest either LeBron or Davis, because I don't think they're going to rest them against Houston, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But what they might do is be just trying to limit them, like when I think they played 32 minutes last night or something like that. LeBron played how many minutes? 30 minutes, which is for him low. Like this guy is a 36-minute-a-game guy when they're down by 16 usually. You know what I mean? Anthony Davis, 29 minutes. You know what I mean? So I think they're not necessarily saving them for tonight, but they're just going to keep getting that kind of performance out of them. So that's just wanted to talk about that from the overall perspective. If you're going to spend up, I would suggest at least considering one of those guys to be one of the Houston guys, because we could hear some news there. But honestly, even that one, Harden and Westbrook are not the kind of players who come into these bubbles and these situations. They want to go out there and beat the hell out of everybody every game, right? These are not teams that are limiting their players. So anyway, we'll get to it. We'll go game by game, but I just thought that was important to really try and focus your attention on the last game as much as you can it's
interesting. My overall view of the slate, when I looked at my projections and looked at everything, was there was like a bunch of guys who I thought were like really, really good, good spend ups. And I was going to let it all come down to ownership and things like that. I didn't even consider that the fact that some of these guys actually might be out.
Like Kelly Oubre Jr.?
Oubre Jr.?
He's in your lineup. I'm trying to figure out what he's doing.
Oh, no, this is a dummy lineup. These are all out, right? This is a dummy lineup or something.
Oh, yeah.
No. This is, I just
you wanted to have the cues up there. I got you.
No. I don't mean that. I mean, we're going to get rid of this.
No, but I actually thought it was kind of interesting because it was nice to see the little Q tags who's questionable. Anyway.
Oh, oops, too late.
So the problem, you see right away, before we get to game by game, you see the problem with Westbrook. He's cheap and he's questionable. Sorry, Sheets, take it away.
Yeah, so the first game, Miami and Milwaukee, I guess the first thing I wanted to ask is what the status of Butler. Is Butler still out?
The plan as of right now, fortunately, it's the first game on the main slate, so I believe Butler is out. By the way, it would have been nice, like why they keep starting at 11:30 every day or 2:30 Eastern. Why wouldn't they have done that today? And we could have got this other, or 10:30 Eastern, we could have got this other cool game on the slate.
Yeah.
First game would have been fun. But anyway, Miami, we're assuming Butler's out. We have Dragic as questionable, which could really, really change things. Now, the thing is, they have some bodies. How are you sort of planning on attacking this situation?
Yeah, so my first view of the Miami side, where there were a couple of guys that kind of fit into my value range just because, I think you're going to need some. And one is, this is nothing fancy, but I would go back to Olynyk, I suppose. He's one of them. And the other one I was going to actually go to is maybe Dragic. So I wasn't aware that he's possibly questionable. So he's the other guy I would go to. I didn't really want to go to Bam on this slate. And the other one I wanted to go to was actually back to Jay Crowder as a possible. So those were the two guys. He's a shooting guard, right?
Crowder?
Power forward now. Okay. So
or small forward usually.
Yeah. So those two guys from a value perspective. On the Milwaukee side, I happen to like Giannis. They rested him in the last game pretty much, and I think he's one of the spend ups that I'm interested in. Now again, should I be worried about his minutes? I mean, I was always worried about his minutes, I guess. But if he comes in like really, really low owned, I'm gonna probably have to take a shot. So from this game, since presumably it's the only game on the slate, which it isn't, but I like Giannis on the Milwaukee side. I didn't quite get to Middleton, although he'd be the next one. And on the Miami side, it would be just the two value guys I mentioned, Olynyk and Crowder.
Yeah, I have a ton of interest on the Miami side. I think we
Ooh,
have.
let's talk about it then. Okay.
Well, but it's going to be the chalk by the time that we get the Dragic news. If Dragic is out, you're just going to have all the ownership here. Jimmy Butler has a late swap the other day, made Tyler Hero, and I guarantee you nobody had Hero in their lineups earlier in the day. Hero ended up at like 27% the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's a little more expensive today. So Iguodala, without Butler in the last game, played 30 minutes, and he's 3,300 on DraftKings. He put up 28 fantasy points. This is a good pace matchup. If we're going to let him play 30 minutes or anywhere near there, I love him at 3,300. If there's no Dragic, I'm finding a hard way to fade Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, picking between the two of them probably. But it's going to be hard not to want to play one of those guys. It's just they need some offensive production. The number one play is Kelly Olynyk for me. That feels weird even. I just want to throw that out there. And I think that if we assume that, which I don't know why we wouldn't, that Bam is going to get his normal run, I think Bam is a really strong play. I'm not thinking this is a Giannis. Maybe I'll get some narrative news because we were pretty sure the other day, like he wasn't going to play. Like they were down, 4 with 2 minutes left and he wasn't playing. I don't know I don't know. You could argue it's a more competitive team against Miami. They've also had the worst games of his career have all been against Miami, but they've all been in Miami too, which makes me a little skeptical of the nightlife. So I'm just not touching Giannis. There's just no way. Nobody on Brooklyn for me. If we hear about some guys resting or something, maybe something could open up. But even then, they're so deep. So I'm just about debating between the Crowder or Olynyk. Whatever happens with Dragic, who would definitely be interesting if he does play. None Jones Hero basically.
So those are your top guys. So if because this is what we have to figure out. Well, they're going to give us the news on it, but it's nothing we can switch to later, right? So if no Dragic, then somewhere between Hero, Nunn, and who? Derek Jones?
I didn't say Derek Jones, but I actually don't think it would be the worst idea in the world. But I'm looking for guys more who can initiate some offense. Iguodala. Bigger boost, but he already has a boost anyway without Jimmy Butler. So does Jay Crowder without Jimmy Butler. Jay Crowder might be the safer play to get the minutes, but Iguodala is probably the higher upside play and much cheaper, obviously, on DraftKings. All right, so, but I would think you might end up finding yourself if Dragic is out with 3 players from Miami in your lineup tonight. That's just my personal take.
Yeah, hang on just one second. Let me just get rid of this.
And I think you're probably going to need at least one. I mean, it's going to be hard because they need to make up for this. The no Butlers. They just do so much through him, and they're all underpriced, except for Olynyk, but he's actually fairly priced with what he's been doing.
Yeah, and also you have to think about if Giannis means business today for whatever reason because they all sat out in the last game. This game could be a problem for Miami also.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's interesting. So we're gonna hopefully you'd have news beforehand. If you have any direct questions or whatever, just tweet me. I'll answer them. Just make sure you don't DM me. Just do it publicly because I don't like to answer a million DMs individually. All right, that's sort of Miami for now. We can sort of revisit it from the overall perspective on the slate at the end if we want to.
Okay. So Indiana Phoenix is the next game I have here, and we will talk about one of the 2 candidates for not really MVP, but sort of MVP of the bubble, and that would be TJ Warren. He's I don't know what it is. I guess with those, whoever thought no Sabonis would mean TJ Warren season every day. So he's been doing great. I once again not sure if I'm going to get to him. I think he's going to have to. I think I'm just going to lose every slate when he gets 9x every single slate, and then I'll as stubborn Eric just doesn't feel like playing him at, what is he, like 11K now or whatever it is?
8,400.
Yeah. So I'm he's a let's put it this way, he's a mid-level play for me today. I'm not going to play him, but I just figured I would mention that he's been doing awesome. Miles Turner, I think, is an okay secondary play. He's not one of my core plays or anything like that. And similar with Brogdon, I think he's just fine. TJ Warren, is this still sort of revenge?
I mean, look, it was his old team. It's he's on him. Everything's revenge.
Yeah.
He's a pretty vengeful guy. Him and Jimmy Butler have a huge beef, so I'm kind of waiting for that game to come around.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that game. That game got canceled. I forgot.
Yeah.
On the Phoenix side, Booker's always in play at any price against any opponent. So I'll include him in the mix. But the guy who really, really stands out is going to be probably really popular also is Deandre Ayton. He is only 7,200, and he's one of the top rated plays on the slate, and probably for good reason. And I have to figure out how much chalk I want to eat with him and how much I want to fade him or whatever. But he's certainly a really, really good play. And I didn't really get to any other Phoenix guys. I didn't get to Bridges. I didn't get to the other guys I kind of look at usually. So for me, it's just Booker and Ayton.
Yeah, I like Ayton better from just like a logic standpoint. I think that, price standpoint, all that stuff. But Booker just does like what he wants, It's a terrible matchup for him. I really can't think of a matchup I would less want to take his type of position here.
Okay.
But it doesn't really, it was a terrible matchup against the Clippers when they had Paul George and Kawhi trying to guard him. So, whatever it is, it is. So I'm okay with Booker. I'm more interested in Ayton. I think we might find that Booker, if you're playing a lot of large field GPPs, might be the better tournament play. Certainly has the upside. Rubio on FanDuel, he's still playing minutes, man, and he's actually putting up. He's averaging 34 fantasy points in the bubble. This is not a huge slate. At 6K on FanDuel, he's more interesting than 66 over here. But I just wanted to mention him. I don't think he's the worst play in the world because we are talking about a guy who gets 1% ownership that has triple-double upside every time he's on the court. Phoenix and Indiana both are playing faster, so just somebody to keep in mind. The other guys I think I'd reserve for FanDuel. But certainly Cameron Johnson is in play over there at 4,200, playing 30 million minutes a game. I wish I could play Mikal Bridges, but it's just hard for him to get there with his style of game. But I think that we do like Ayton followed by that's pretty much Ayton followed by maybe you can take a shot with Rubio or Booker. But on FanDuel, I think that Cam Johnson is much more in play, as is you could even play Saric over there.
Okay. Let's go ahead to the Clippers and Dallas, and it's a very light bunch of recommendations for me. We'll have the same discussion about Kawhi. He rates to be a good play. He rates to be a good, I guess, cash play, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Rates to be a good median projection type dude, and it's just a question, as you kind of bring up, of how motivated he is to really get out there because he's in a matchup where they could score a lot of points, and it could be a time where he does it. Now, obviously, Paul George is still is a good play also. The other guy, I think maybe on FanDuel was maybe Reggie Jackson. But on the Dallas side, it's the same two guys. I think Luka's still the best play. And I think, as you might probably we'll talk about it, and then Kristaps is probably the good low-owned play. I think that's the way you kind of analyze Dallas right now. I don't want to play any of the other stuff. And, that's about it.
Yeah, if you go over the last 2 months, Paul George and Kawhi have almost identical, fantasy point production. So I don't understand this projection system always being where it is. Now, certainly, Kawhi, not almost identical. Kawhi is a few points ahead. But he's also played oddly more minutes because George, people forget, was often limited this year earlier on, coming back from an injury. So when you factor everything in this situation, I just would side with Paul George over Kawhi. I don't play look, man, if I play Kawhi, this is a great spot for an offense. Haven't seen anything from him that has showed me him trying to take over exactly. I don't know that's going to get to him. Now, playing Dallas sort of does seem to wake people up because Luka's got a lot of bravado, and they're very difficult to play. They're literally the most efficient offense, one of the most efficient offense in the history of the NBA. So maybe they do get up for this one, and maybe Kawhi's a little better to play than usual. Certainly on FanDuel at even cheaper price at a small forward spot. But I don't know, man. It worries me a little bit. To be honest with you, I'm looking at Lou Williams in this game as a potential, like, I think he's going to get some minutes off the bench. He played 20 minutes in the last game. I think you could see him push that up to 25 or 26. I think they want to get their whole team back together. So I see it sort of spreading out a little bit more and not wanting to focus as much on what probably will be a very chalky and always over-projected Kawhi. Don't you agree that Kawhi is like the most over-projected player? Because what he does is he gets those 65s or whatever, but then he's always in the 35 to 45 range the rest of the time. He just gets those 65s in that one big spot every 2 weeks. And it's hard to pick with him when that's going to be.
Well, I think that he's projected just fine relative to, if you just look at median projections. If he just looks at median projections, I think he makes his projection like just as often, if not more so than anybody, but I just don't think
he hasn't made it once in the bubble. Not once.
Okay.
He hasn't hit 5X in the bubble one time.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Lou Williams, because I have my little sheet here and I was writing down, just my top plays and whatever. And I was really starved for value. I didn't really know that the Miami guys were as in play, because I didn't know that Dragic was as questionable as you said. And literally I wrote down 2 value plays on the whole slate, and one was Olynyk and the other was Lou Williams ? So I was going to ask you about him actually. So I'm glad that you have a little bit of interest in him.
Yeah, I just think there's enough tournament upside. Dallas can give up the 3 ball. We don't have what's his name tonight. There's no Patrick Beverly. So on FanDuel, Reggie Jackson and Lou. Well, Reggie Jackson is interesting on FanDuel, not on DraftKings so much, but he's 4K on FanDuel. The problem is some of those minutes are also going to go to Lou Williams now with impact, so it's like a little bit of a tricky situation. And then they have a lot of bodies. That's the truth. They have a lot of bodies. I also want to point out one last thing about Clippers. I'm not going to say they're good against bigs, but what they did against Phoenix, against Ayton, actually impressed me. And with Noah even in a few minutes of the rotation, with JaMychal Green there now, with Marcus Morris there, even though these aren't traditional centers, Patrick Patterson, these are guys who are good big bodies that can actually defend bigs decently enough. So they're not quite the team to pick on with bigs that they were early in the season. Just want to throw that out there.
What do you think about Luka and
Let's go KP. Let's go KP. I have no reason to jump off the KP bandwagon now. Fouled out the other night. Got the foul trouble really hurt him. It actually made him less aggressive too. And on top of that, he only played 27 minutes, couldn't make a shot, was 6 of 18 from the floor, and he still puts up 36 fantasy points. Like, he could have easily. He has a normal shooting night. He gets to we probably get 50 out of him. He doesn't foul out. We get 50 out of him. If somehow he makes it to overtime, we probably get 60 out of him. You know what I mean? He's not, if he fouls out, if we're going to play Kristaps foul trouble problem, bingo. You only do that when the guy's chalky to me. I'm not going to worry about it at low ownership again. I love Kristaps. I like him on DraftKings and FanDuel, and I am willing to take the anti-projection stand on Kristaps. But I like Luka too a little bit, so it's a little bit of a toss-up. I think I'm going to side with Kristaps again.
Not that anybody can really guard Luka, but the Clippers, they're really good, with Kawhi and Paul George or whatever. They're pretty good at not locking down, at kind of trying to contain like the guards and the off guards. But Kristaps is a tough guy to guard. You know what I mean? Like you could argue that he might even have a better matchup. It's kind of stupid to say that because Luka, nobody can really guard him, right? But maybe this is a matchup where it's harder for Luka than it would be for Kristaps. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that's definitely logical. I'm very on board with the Kristaps over Luka today. I feel better about it than I have than I did the other day.
Okay.
But I do want to stress that. Look, KP puts up 50 again in that game if he doesn't foul out in 27 minutes, gets those extra 6 minutes. He's gonna be like, I think it would be the first time you would actually see him like somewhat chalky today.
We'll see.
Anyway, he's not going to be because he didn't do it.
Okay. Portland, Denver. Now we get to the second possible MVP in the waiting of this bubble, and that would be Michael Porter Jr. He's insane. First of all, how good is he? But I guess a better question is, how bad is the freaking coach of Denver for not playing him 30? What's that?
Mike Malone's awesome.
That's right.
He's a great coach. Great coach.
How does this guy sit on the bench ever? Guy's incredible.
So wait, okay, so let me just tell you a quick thing about Michael Porter. He was the number 1 rated player in high school a couple years back. It wasn't the Zion draft. I can't remember which draft it was. Obviously, it wasn't the Zion draft. No, it was the Zion draft. I believe it was, yeah. He, no. well, couldn't have been just last year. What am I talking about? It was the year before. Anyway, he was a guy who would have been like the top pick, and he had the injury problems, and he basically had to be limited even when he came back. So the first part of the minutes, that was it. The other part is that his defense is truly one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. He also gets himself in foul trouble, and he's fouling 3-point shooters all the time, and he misses rotations. And this is a team that prides itself on its defense, and as everybody else can play defense on this team, except for Jokic he's actually pretty good for his skill set. Anyway, so Porter hadn't had the chance really. I think they know now they need him, especially without all these other guys. And also it was harder for him to get minutes when Will Barton was playing well and Jamal Murray was playing well and Gary Harris is a good defender and all that stuff. I do think it's Michael Porter's season. I think we got to just keep playing him.
Yeah. The other thing I will also say about this game is that I'm telling you that Jokic is like one of the great DFS trolls. I mean, he literally has 15 fantasy points the first half every single time. And he will always score 30 plus in the second half. Question is how many points he's going to get in the first half. Because he's so good. I mean, like, you really can't guard him. And he runs the whole offense. The funniest thing about it is that Michael Porter Jr. is sneaky taking some rebounds away from him. He was like just clearing the glass on the defensive end. And what's his name? And Jokic doesn't care. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine by me. So I do happen to like both of them. I like Jokic. I like Michael Porter Jr. I don't like anybody else from there. And on the Portland side, until you tell me that Dame Lillard is not playing anymore, I'm just gonna keep playing him. Let's go. So it's gonna be Lillard on Portland and Jokic and Porter on the other side, and sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm going to skip. So I think I'm not going to end up with Jokic on DraftKings today, and I don't know about FanDuel yet. But I the back-to-back worries me a little bit.
Sure.
And for his type of game, especially, like he played 39 minutes the other day. He only played 32 yesterday, so that's a little bit better. But I think there's probably he's probably going to play 30, 32 minutes or 30. This is not going to be a spot where you see him stretched out to 38 or something like that. He's going up against his old buddy. They were the front line, the dominant front line. They had to mix up because they couldn't both play them together. But with Nurkic, going back against this Denver team, I think it's just kind of an interesting matchup. So I think Jokic probably does get up for it, and I think he's okay. If Jamal Murray plays today, also I just want to add that I do like Porter less, especially if he's going to be high owned. I still like him, but I want to get off of some of that chalk because I think there's a more variance in it than his foul trouble alone makes it a high variance situation. If Murray is out again, Monty Morris is fine to go back to and take a shot on. Nobody seemed to do it yesterday. Put up 30 fantasy points, and
I did. I had him. That was one of the only good things I did yesterday.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it for me. I really like Dame, and I really like CJ.
You like CJ tonight?
I like CJ better on FanDuel where he's cheaper. I don't like Dame, the matchup for Dame. Denver just does a good job against these guards. We just saw it again. I mean, sure White got free, but like the actual starting point guard, in Murray was just completely locked down. Murray, who I hated by the way, and then decided to switch to 100% on FanDuel in my big buy-ins because I realized no one was going to own him after all the other news. So I was really excited, and then he just did nothing. But Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, but on FanDuel probably a better play. I'm not excited about it. It's a small slate. Those are guys I'm considering because I'm really not into anybody else on this side. I would like Nurkic if he was cheaper. I like the old going back against his old buddy thing.
All right, in the last game, to me is.
You mentioned Zach Collins.
I didn't mention him. Why? You like him tonight?
He's 4,300. You know what I mean? He's projected to crush his value. He's got a 6x projection almost. I think they're going to need size to match up, and he plays anyway. So. Well,
I'm gonna need value if I'm gonna play some of these other guys. So.
Well, Collins is one. I like him better on DraftKings, and I like Cameron Johnson at the same price on FanDuel.
Okay.
Yeah, basically that's the way I'm looking at those guys.
All right, so in the Lakers-Houston game, I don't like LeBron as much as I like Davis, but I'm kind of with you. I don't know how much I like either of them. But they're definitely in my pay up mix. I guess I don't know. I'm looking at what I have here. Maybe Davis. A little
Davis would
bit.
definitely be, look, if you're just talking about,
I really don't think I want to play either of them. And it's
I had a suite. I was invited by DraftKings to a suite for the Laker game for this particular matchup before. Davis absolutely smashed and Westbrook absolutely smashed in that matchup, and that sort of would be the way that I would expect this sort of to go. Especially right now, the Lakers don't have anyone who can keep up with Russ if he plays, and they just have no size to match up with Davis. So that's the way. If you're going to play anybody, to me it'd be Davis. But I'm not touching the Lakers. I actually might have some interest in throwing in Caruso for value or something, because I could see very limited minutes here. I just think it's a situation I probably just want to stay away from on the Lakers side. Feels terrible.
Yeah, I had Kuzma as a possible value.
Yeah, he's fine.
And so what if they announce Westbrook's out? I mean, what is this? Is this one of those things you just can't fade Harden? I mean,
I don't think you should. Like, he's just a better spend up than the other guys to me.
It has to be, right? I mean,
he's a good play anyway. But Westbrook is the play if he's in. And
so if he's in, you think Westbrook's a better play than Harden? Okay, that's fair.
Look at the price difference. I mean, honestly, I could just have said that every day, basically, which I have been, and he's basically been the better player for the last, other than one game. I don't know, not other than one game. He's been the better value for a long time. So that's where I'm at with Russ. But I do think you need to try and get some exposure to him, because it's going to be – I hate not having more exposure to Lakers. I think Kuzma does make sense, but I would like to get some other exposure, and maybe I'll find something later. But, this – against this Houston team, it's hard not to want to have some interest. Even Covington's another guy that sort of grades out as a pretty solid play.
Hey, can we go back to just have it written down? Can we go back to another game just a second?
Yeah.
Can we just go back to the Indiana game for a minute? We didn't talk about the guards as much as maybe we could have. Do you have any interest in either Aaron Holiday or Oladipo from that game?
Not Aaron Holiday. I mean, all the guards are back now.
Okay. What about Oladipo? Is it time for him or not?
Oladipo would be the one who you'd play, I think. Okay. But I mean, they're both okay. Actually, Aaron Holiday is really – it's interesting. I don't know. I like Oladipo, but I've just been watching him, and he just doesn't – I just don't see him being aggressive offensively, like, at all. And it worries me a little bit. But I do think the price is right. So I'm absolutely have Oladipo on my list, but I don't know how many he'll make.
Okay.
The guys who I really do, that I've got just sort of noted as plays who I want to prioritize today.
Sure.
Porter, George, Cam Johnson on FanDuel as a low-owned play. Westbrook or Harden, depending on that, obviously, health situation. Olynyk, one of Crowder or Iguodala. Porzingis and Deandre Ayton.
And we got to watch for the Dragic news, right? See if he's out. Then those two guards come into play. What about Duncan Robinson? Is he still in play or not really?
He's always a guy who can make 10 threes in the game, so he's always in play. I just don't have any. I mean, actually, outside shooting you can get to Milwaukee. They're good at defending it by numbers, but they give up a lot of them. So kind of
nice little compact slate. Who do you think is going to be? I was about to say who's going to be the highest owned guy on the slate. That's kind of silly right now.
It's going to be hard to know because I think we're going to hear some news. Like, I really expect to hear some news. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. And then, look, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'll answer any of the questions.
All right. So that should be good.
Yeah. All right. For Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck out there, everybody. We'll have a baseball video to you soon.